and in this tutorial I will show you how to read a friendship bracelet pattern like this one with all of these little bubbles and these funky looking arrows. When I first got started making friendship bracelets, I had no idea what any of this meant and it was very confusing, so hopefully this video can answer some questions for those of you who are just getting started. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell next to it so you get updates when I post new videos, and be sure to post a comment below telling me what you think. Okay, first things first, if you're watching this video, you're probably not super familiar with friendship bracelets. This is the pattern I'm using, which I wouldn't necessarily call a beginner pattern. You might want to do a candy stripe or a chevron before practicing this one, but I chose this pattern because it has forward, backward, backward, forward, and forward, backward knots. So, I took a look at which strings I would need. It looks like I need 2 of this red, 2 of this white, and 2 of this blue. Now, if I were just cutting single strings, I would cut them around 35 inches, but because I have 2 of each, I know I can just tie a loop in my strings to start my bracelet. So, I actually only have 1 green, 1 red, and 1 white, but because I grabbed the center of the strings and tied a loop in the very center of each string, I was able to cut my strings to 70 inches each. So, this is only 3 strings. I grabbed the very middle of each of these strings, tied this loop in it, and that's how I'm starting my bracelet. So, the 3 strings turns into 6 strings. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to clip this up in my clipboard. I've got a clipboard, and since it's metal, I've got this piece of paper on it so it won't cut through my strings, because sometimes that happens. Now, I use slightly different colors, but they're basically the same. So those are my 6 strings laid out in the same way that they appear in this friendship bracelet pattern. And then when you tie these strings together, these circles, these little bubbles with arrows, represent the knots. The numbers on the sides here are each row. Now this is a 1-2 pattern, and what that means is that the strings on the far left and the far right are going to alternate being in the pattern. So for this first row, you see where the 2 strings lead into a single bubble? That means that those strings are paired. So these 2 are paired, these 2 are paired, and these 2 are paired. But when you get down to the second row here, you'll see that these outer strings don't get into the mix. So this string and this string will be paired, and this string and this string will be paired. So I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. If you haven't watched my video on how to tie the 4 types of knots, you should probably do that before you watch this video, and that might actually solve some of your pattern questions, actually. This first knot in this pattern is a backward knot, and think of this as if you were just looking at it in the direction that you read. So in English, we read from left to right. A, B, C, C, B, A. If the arrow is pointing opposite the direction that you read, that means it's a backward knot. If it's pointing in the direction you read, that means it's a forward knot. So I'm just going to start slow with the backward and forward knots that we have in this first row. So since the red string and the white string are going into this first bubble, and I can see it's a backward knot, but also another clue is that you'll see the color of the string that is going to be the knot. So because this is a backward knot, the string that's on the right is going to be the color of the knot. And you're going to be tying it over the red string. So you're not going to see that red string at all. If you know how to tie the knots, you're already ahead of the curve here. But for this backward knot, I'm going to make a backwards 4. I'm putting the red string on the bottom, that's my base string, and then I'm tying on with this white string. And I'm going to take that white string underneath the red string and pull it through the loop on that 4. See what I did there? It's going through, and then I'm going to pull that up and to the right. And that's half of 1 knot, okay? So you're not done tying that first knot yet. You do the same thing twice for this backward knot. See? I'm making that 4, and I'm pulling it through the loop, tying the white onto the red string. So that, right there, is your first knot. And now that I've tied that knot, my strings have switched place, because when you tie this knot, it redirects that white string. So now the white string is so now the white string is going to be on the left and the red string is going to be on the right. Now I know that from this pattern I've got these two middle green strings and they are leading into the middle knot. This middle knot is a forward knot. So remember how we did with the backward knot? We basically made a 4. So a forward knot is the same thing but going the opposite direction. So my base string is in my right hand and my tying string is in my left hand. I'm basically making a 4. Just like that. So now the tying string is going to go underneath that base string and go through the loop of that 4 and pulling it up and to the left. I'm only halfway done with that knot now. Make another 4, pull that string through the loop and up and to the left. And that is the knot. And then the strings switch places. Remember? Because the strings switch places with forward and backward knots. So now this last knot, I can see that this white string goes into the knot and that knot is white and it's a forward knot, so I know that the string on the left is going to be tying on and that's making the knot. And then the string on the right is this red string. That's going to be our base string. I'm basically making a 4. And you're tying the white string onto the red. Make that backwards 4, pull it through the loop, and pull it up and to the left. With the forward and backward knots, you pull the string opposite in the direction of the arrow, otherwise things will get jumbled. You're only halfway through the knot. Pull that white string through the loop and up and to the left. And when you're done with that knot, the strings will switch place. So I hope that makes sense. Now we are moving on to the second row. You have these little numbers on the side. This is the second row. And remember, this is a 1-2 pattern. So these outer strings were in for the first row, but for the second row, they're out of commission. So in this case, there are white strings. We're gonna pull those white strings off to the side and just forget about them for a minute. So now we see, going into our second row of knots, you've got this red string on the left, this green string on the right. Then for the second knot, you've got a green string on the left and a red string on the right. So these lines here, these are strings. That's what these lines represent. And then they go into the bubbles, which are the knots. So for the first knot, which is this one on the left, it is a backward knot. And it looks like that red string is the base string and the green string is the string you're tying on with. So remember how this works? You do your base string pulled tight and it's a backward knot. And I'm gonna make a backwards 4. Pull it through the loop, pull up into the right because the arrow is pointing left. So remember, you pull in the opposite direction of the knot. Do another. And this looks a lot different when I do it quickly, but I'm showing you these 4s so that you know exactly how this knot is going. Pull it up into the left, and now your strings have switched place again. Okay, so we've done that knot. Now we're gonna do the knot on the right. Red string is the base string, green string is tying on. This is a forward knot because this arrow is pointing forward in the direction you read. So this red string is my base string, green string I'm tying on with, and I'm pulling up into the left. 4, through the loop, up into the left, and those strings switch place. And the strings will sort of naturally flop into the direction that they are going to be in the next row. So I've cut the tape and completed a couple more rows off camera, and this way I can skip ahead to the 5th row to show you a backward forward and a forward backward. So the backward forward starts going in a backward direction, but then that little line there changes direction and then it finishes going forward. Same thing with the forward backward. It starts going in the same direction as a forward knot, like this one, and then it goes this way and then it changes direction and ends going in the same direction as a backward knot, like that one. So, you know what that means? You pair off your strings again. So it's gonna start just like a backwards knot. And you're halfway done with the knot. But what happens is you switch the direction that you tie on. Your green is still gonna be the base string. You still keep that one held tight because you're finishing it to look like a forward knot. And remember which direction you need to pull for each knot, because that's how you will finish pulling them. Now you'll notice that my strings did not switch place. When you're doing a forward knot or a backward knot, notice how the red was on the left here and the white was on the right. When I did a backward knot, then after that, the white was on the left and the red was on the right. But see how with this backward forward started, when I finished it, green was still on the left and red was still on the right. So with your backward forward and your forward backward knots, the strings will not switch places. But with your forward knots and backward knots, they do switch places. Now, the middle knot is a simple one. It's just a forward knot. There you go, your strings switch places. And this one is a forward backward because it starts like a forward knot and it ends like a backward knot. Forward backward. So that is your red string and your green string. The green string is going to be the bass string through this whole thing. So start it like a forward knot, remember that 4. Pull it through the loop and then finish it like a forward knot. And make sure you're pulling in the correct direction. And your strings did not switch place because it is a forward backward. Red is still on the left, green is still on the right, just like that. And you just continue the exact same way. And eventually they will all create this pattern. There are other patterns where the knots will be pointed straight this way, then go down, then straight this way, then go down, straight this way. And instead of having these bubbles, they will just have squares. That is an alpha pattern, and that's a completely different ball game than this one. If you want me to make a video on how to read alpha patterns, then post a comment below telling me please do an alpha pattern. I hope that clears it up for those of you who did not know how to read these before. Make sure you check out my video on how to do the 4 types of knots. And if you've never done a friendship bracelet before, after you watch that knot video, be sure to go and watch a video on how to do a candy stripe bracelet first, then do a chevron bracelet, then you work your way up to these slightly more complicated bracelets like this one. This one only has 6 strings, but you'll see it has 20 rows, so it's a bit of a commitment. And I really like this one, so I think I'm gonna finish it up and actually make it into a wrap bracelet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more tutorials like this one, hit the like button and subscribe. Follow me on social media at Katrinaosity, and be sure to post a comment below telling me what you think.